Hey, it's Ross from the Infectious Groove Podcast and Vinyl Channel. We're going to get into an opinion debate topic today. I'm sitting here at the end of the alphabet because I want to talk about Van Halen. Sammy Hagar versus David Lee Roth, David Lee Roth versus Sammy Hagar, or whatever order you need to put them in. The discussion and the debate's coming right up. So if this is your first time stopping by the channel, we have two different types of videos that come out every single week. One video focuses on one of the rare pressings that I have down here. If you're a Van Halen fan, I have put up a couple of videos already about some of the rare Van Halen pressings that I have. If you're a fan of really any type of music, I've got a video for you about the different rare pressings that I have. And the other type of video that we put out every week is meant mostly to get some sort of topic discussion going, debate, or good-natured debate of some sort. And this time out, I thought I would cover one that has been debated nearly my whole life and continues to rage on, and that is, who's the better lead singer for Van Halen? David Lee Roth, who came first, or Sammy Hagar, who came after? And almost everybody leaves Gary Cherone out of the debate, which I think in its own way is kind of a crying shame, but I will quickly mention a couple of things about Gary Cherone, and then I'll get off that soapbox and get back to the matter at hand. But I think Gary Cherone is an amazing frontman, incredible singer, and really quite a showman. He has the vocal range of both David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar, and was able to prove as much when they did do the one tour for Van Halen 3. I understand why the record Van Halen 3 is for lack of a better term, insulted a lot by Van Halen fans and rock critics and whatnot. I think it's a good album. It could have been a lot better, and I think that if things would have went a little bit different with how Gary joined the band, I think maybe if they had went on tour first, they might have been able to get a little more gelling and put together quite a bit better records. So I don't want to show Gary any disrespect by sweeping him completely out of this conversation. So I just want to make those quick points on him. Now for the grand finale, the matter at hand. David Lee Roth versus Sammy Hagar seems to be something that's been debated since the day Dave walked out of the band and Sammy walked in. These I couldn't begin to explain to someone who doesn't have a history of really listening to Van Halen without them hearing how completely different bands they are with David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar. In my opinion, there's nothing similar about the music that they make, up to and including the way Edward plays, which I think is the most common thread between the two bands. Certainly Edward was playing a lot more synths and keys and whatnot, but still ripping up the guitar on the 4 albums that Sammy did with the band, and was leaning that way, growing that way when David Lee Roth was furthering through the David Lee Roth era up until when David Lee Roth left. Eddie was really maturing more into more instruments and playing them on the actual records. But the style with which Edward Van Halen played guitar, in my opinion, was almost completely different from 5150 on, the first Sammy Hagar record on. So to me, there's almost never been like a debate for me. I mean, I've engaged all the time. I have friends of mine that we still send, funny text messages back and forth, engaging in the debate about Sammy versus Dave. But it's two completely different bands to me. There's just no way to compare the two and say one is better than the other, even though the band is all under the Van Halen umbrella. I just don't see it even as the same band. When you look at Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth as frontmen, just if you were to see what they do on stage, there are some similarities, especially Sammy in his earlier days when he first joined Van Halen, coming off of his solo career in Montrose. He was a lot more wild on stage, a lot of jump kicks, a lot of I don't know if he openly did splits and all that stuff like Dave did, but he ran around the stage a lot more and was really high energy and whatnot, which is what Dave did as far as showman goes on the stage. As far as vocals go, two completely different cats in the vocals, and that has nothing to do with the fact that David Lee Roth just doesn't have as high of a vocal range as Sammy Hagar. But what David Lee Roth was doing for those Van Halen records that he was on, Van Halen 1 through 1984, the vocals fit just fine. It wasn't anything where when Sammy came in, we said, oh, this is what Van Halen was missing the whole time, we just needed a high voice. Certainly, to me, completely different vocals, and it wasn't anything that anybody heard and said, yeah, this is definitely the puzzle piece that was missing. I think lyrically is where the huge major difference is, and I think that is what made Edward play completely different. I know it's been said from David Lee Roth before, the difference between me and Sammy is I ain't talking about love, and Sammy says, why can't this be love, or something along those lines. But very, very, very true statement. Complete. If you just look at just the song titles on Van Halen 1 through 1984 versus the song titles on 5150 through Balance, you really completely different messaging. Eddie is playing more to, Beautiful Girls, Mean Streets, Drop Dead Legs, Top Jimmy. Eddie's playing more to that party style when Dave is singing about partying. And with the Sammy era, Edward really, really started playing, in my opinion, a lot more melodically. That's when the keys really felt at home, in as much as they helped convey, like, what would a song like Why Can't This Be Love or When It's Love be without those keyboard parts? And again, in both of those, Edward's got a fantastic, especially When Love Walks In. Edward's solo in When Love Walks In is, I don't think, anything that he would have done at all with David Lee Roth in the band. I don't think it would have been anywhere near the same type of sweeping melody and emotion that Eddie put into the music. So as far as I'm concerned, I think if nothing else, both frontmen contributed to us getting as much great material out of Edward as we did. Now, one thing I want to talk about with respect to both musicians that I think is kind of a bummer, frontmen, I guess. Sammy plays guitar. Anyways, one thing I want to talk about is that when people do these wild debates between these two lead singers, nobody talks about what I feel are the two most underrated records that either of them put out under the Van Halen banner. And that is the Balance LP and A Different Kind of Truth, which personally I think these are two of the best Van Halen records that have ever been made. And it seems like all of the Sammy fans who were constantly defending Sammy, by the time Balance came out, there wasn't a lot of love left. Like, it really wasn't a revered record. Now, over the years, I hear a lot more people going on about maybe it's because of the lack of material that came out in the later half of Van Halen's career. I don't know, but I hear this record get a lot more appreciation. But although the tour was successful, when this record came out, it was not at all highly regarded by Van Halen fans. And I actually heard a lot of fans saying, oh, here we go again, Sammy and his, love songs. Oh my God, this whole record is just Sammy, complaining about love and divorce and yeah, okay, that's what I want. I want a human, real emotion from Sammy, and that's what he was able to provide on this record. So I think that before even if you're a staunch David Lee Roth supporter, maybe give this record a shot and see if there's something that maybe you missed on there that Sammy brought to the table. And to you Sammy supporters, I would tell you, and actually, you know what? I'm going to talk directly to the David Lee Roth supporters too. Where are you at on this record? Why is there no love for A Different Kind of Truth? I think that this is, from a band standpoint, some of the best playing that has happened across a Van Halen record, like from start to finish. Edward is on fire the whole record. Yes, I know it's Wolfgang playing bass instead of Michael Anthony, but Wolfgang's on fire on this record, and if you say otherwise, you're cheating yourself. Alex is there's no way to say this and have it sound as an insult, but it's meant as a compliment. Alex Van Halen is being Alex Van Halen. He's just kicking ass on the drums through the whole thing. And I think this is some of the most inspired playing that Eddie has done in quite some time. There's stuff on here that's going to still be inspiring musicians for years, as much as the first Van Halen record did, if it gets recognition and people start to talk about it more. And I also think that Dave's lyrics on this record are stunningly good at points. Sure, there's a lot of Dave being Dave, but there is a lot of really deep stuff on this album that I don't think very many people dug into. Now, it's not the deep and emotional level that Sammy gets to, but it's a whole lot of life lesson type, mystic type stuff. And Dave knows a turn of phrase on this record. He does a really, really, really good job with it. And for me, the debate between David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar really comes down to a couple things. Sammy Hagar is there to entertain you, and he's there to entertain the fans while making great music. I heard someone say once about David Lee Roth, and I don't think there's ever been a more accurate phrase said about David Lee Roth, that David Lee Roth is there to entertain Dave first, and then you. So if Dave is entertained, then you might also be entertained. And I don't say that to insult Dave. And the person that said it to me, that I worked with years ago, he wasn't saying it to insult Dave either. That's just the way David Lee Roth is. Dave's doing Dave, and then if you get entertained as well, cool. And that's not to say that one's better than the other. So in my opinion, I've almost always looked at it as two completely different bands. From 5150 on, it's a completely different band. I'm happy to have both. Always have been happy to have both. I've never taken a side and said, "Oh, you can't like Van Halen with Sammy Hagar," or "Oh, you can't like Van Halen if you like David Lee Roth." And also, I think now, with hindsight being 2020 and the unfortunate and devastating loss of Edward Van Halen so young, I think that really it's time for everybody to put their weapons down and just say, let's all be thankful for what we had. And really, again, if anything, I'm gonna end this video with two things. One is, if you're a staunch fan of either, now's the time. Go dig into the catalog from the other side of the fence, whether it's Dave or Sammy. Dig into the other side that you've never really given a chance, or maybe you just heard the radio hits. And if nothing else, take in what Edward left behind for us from those tracks, and maybe you'll find some new favorite Van Halen cuts. The other thing that I want to say to end the video is this: we always are looking for comments on the video. Hopefully what we get on this is, like I said at the beginning, maybe a fun debate. I would love it if we could get some folks in the comments to have a respectable debate. No reason for everybody to get all angry at each other. I know it's the internet, but let's all try and have a little fun with the discussion. So how do you feel about what I said? Is it a reasonable standpoint, or are you just ride or die Dave, or the band didn't even start for you until Sammy came in with 5150? How do you feel about it? Definitely leave us a comment below. I'd love to have interaction on the channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, maybe today's the day you'll go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. Even if it's not, I want to say thank you so much for watching.